Hey everybody. So in this video we're going to discuss the lymphatic system. And before we really talk about the lymphatic system, we should talk about some of the components of the system. And that begins with interstitial fluid and how it becomes lymph, right? So you'll see in the next slide what interstitial fluid is, but the point is we have this fluid inside of the lymphatic vessels that's called lymph, and this is going to become the plasma of our blood, right? So in other words, the lymphatic system, one of the main roles is it's going to take different fluids throughout the body and put them back into the bloodstream. The next one, it's going to be used in some fat digestion, but also another really important role is its role in protecting the body from bacterial invasion, right? So specifically in the bloodstream. So if any bacteria get into our bloodstream, the lymphatic system is going to play a vital role in making sure that that bacteria is taken care of before it can travel anywhere else in the body and cause significant damage. Again, once something gets into the blood, it's going to travel throughout the body. So it's really important that we have the ability to protect our body with this lymphatic system to take care of and destroy any bacteria that gets into that bloodstream. So, going back to the interstitial fluid part, I figure this is just a better way to describe it. So we have our tissue cells, just any tissue cells that you can see here, right? We have our blood vessels, we have the capillary, we have the veins, we have the arteries. So just on a regular day, there are fluids that surround our tissues, right? I'm going to color it in here, right? So there's some fluids that, they surround the tissues and cells of our bodies, right? And also sometimes fluid is going to leak out of our blood vessels. So sometimes there's fluid that leaks out of our capillaries, our veins, our arteries. And when that interstitial fluid, that's what it's called, the interstitial fluid, when that leaks out, um, our body wants to reabsorb that. It wants to put it back into our bloodstream. And that's where the lymphatic system comes in. So here's something that sometimes we don't even realize is happening. These green looking tissues here, these green vessels, are the lymphatic system. So what happens is this interstitial fluid is going to go into these vessels. When they get into the vessels, they're going to travel, and eventually they're going to make their way back into the bloodstream. Right? So the lymphatic system is going to pick up all this interstitial fluid. Once that fluid gets into the the lymphatic system, it's called lymph, right? So that it has a different term for when it's inside of the lymphatic capillaries. Here's another image of what that looks like, right? So we discussed the cardiovascular system in the last chapter. So we see the blood vessels, the arteries, and the veins. But something we kind of take for granted is the fact that we do have lymphatic capillaries that are going to pick up that interstitial fluid and carry that lymph, right, the lymph fluid, throughout the pathway until eventually it reaches certain veins that bring the lymph back into the bloodstream. Another major component that you can see here are these lymph nodes. And you're probably familiar with hearing about lymph nodes. So, lymph nodes are bundles of lymph tissue that the lymph fluid is going to circulate through. And there's going to be cells in there that are going to help to fight off any infections if anything gets through there, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you can see the major vessels here. We have the lymphatic capillaries, the lymph nodes, and the lymphatic vessels. And eventually they make their way back into a vein. Here's another way we can look at it. Again, it's just what we talked about, but it's just spelled out a little bit nicer, a little cleaner. So again, we have the lymphatic capillaries. That's going to pick up that interstitial fluid, put it into the lymph vessels. As they travel through the vessels, they go through lymph nodes. And then from there, they eventually end up in what's called lymphatic trunks, which are going to directly drain into um, certain veins. So the main veins that they're going to deposit into are the left and right subclavian veins. And here's another image where you can see some of the lymphatic vessels throughout the body, as well as some of the major lymph nodes. If you have any questions on any of this so far, please let me know.